I think a lot of us, we were expecting to see, well, history made last night with Kamala Harris. But instead, we got a whole different kind of history. This deep dive is all about the 2024 election, those shocking upsets and broken records that probably left a lot of us kind of scratching our heads.
Yeah, it's interesting because upsets happen, right? But this election had some truly unprecedented outcomes, especially for those who were, really hoping to see Harris in the White House.
For sure. I mean, let's just start with the biggest shock of all. Donald Trump back in the Oval Office. That alone is pretty remarkable. He's only the second president to win non-consecutive terms.
And on top of that, we can't forget the historical weight of this.
Yeah.
Trump is now the first felon ever elected to the presidency. It's a development that, very few, if any, predicted.
Seriously. I mean, rewind to a few weeks ago. Remember those polls? The Seltzer poll had Harris up by 3% in Iowa, but Trump won it by over 13%.
Yeah, those early predictions really show you how much this election defied expectations. And Iowa was just the beginning. Trump flipped Pennsylvania, Georgia, Wisconsin, and Michigan states that were, considered crucial for a Harris victory.
It's like the entire blue wall just crumbled, just overnight. And to top it all off, it looks like Trump might even win the popular vote. If that happens, it would be the first Republican popular vote victory in 20 years.
Wow. That kind of shift suggests a significant change in the political landscape since 2020, And I think one of the most surprising aspects of this election is the shift in demographics, particularly among Latino voters.
Yeah. The increase in Latino support for Trump is definitely something worth exploring more.
Absolutely. Exit polls suggest that the economy and immigration were really key concerns for Republican voters. And it seems like these issues resonated pretty strongly with a portion of the Latino community.
In his victory speech, Trump called this win the greatest political movement of all time, vowing to fix the borders and usher in a golden age of America. Do those talking points sound familiar?
Yeah, his rhetoric definitely echoes the themes that kind of propelled him to victory back in 2016. It'll be fascinating to see how or if these promises translate into actual, policy in his second non-consecutive term.
And let's not forget about the team he's assembling. I mean, his inner circle is full of these high-profile allies like J.D. Vance. He's fresh off his Senate win and already calling this, get this, the greatest political comeback in American history.
Vance's enthusiasm really, speaks volumes about the energy surrounding Trump's return. And then there's, of course, the speculation about Elon Musk potentially joining the administration.
Oh, yeah. Trump practically gushed over Musk and SpaceX's recent Starship landing, so it wouldn't be surprising to see Musk playing some role in the new administration.
For sure. Musk's potential involvement adds a whole other layer of intrigue. His influence in tech and innovation could definitely impact policy decisions, especially when it comes to things like space exploration and infrastructure.
And then there's Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who's rumored to have been promised control over public health agencies. He's already making waves, stating that entire departments within the FDA need to be dismantled.
Yeah, Kennedy's strong stance on individual choice, particularly regarding vaccines, has already sparked a lot of debate. His potential influence on public health policy under the Trump administration is definitely something to keep a close eye on. It's kind of remarkable, to consider that while Trump secured another victory, Kamala Harris, in her concession speech, called for unity and a peaceful transition of power. She stated that the light of America's promise will always burn bright. And despite her loss, she remains committed to fighting for her beliefs, particularly regarding women's reproductive rights, gun control, and the strength of American democracy.
Yeah. Her commitment to those issues really shines through, even in the face of a difficult loss, But it makes you wonder, what happens now? Trump made some pretty bold campaign promises, especially when it comes to tariffs and deportations. Those could have huge ripple effects.
Absolutely. These are two areas where Trump's policies could have, significant implications for both the economy and the social fabric of the country.
Right. Let's start with tariffs. He talked about a 10-20% tariff on all imported goods and a 60% tariff on Chinese imports. He frames this as a way to put America first, but a lot of economists are raising concerns.
Yeah, the thing about tariffs is that while they're often presented as, a punishment for foreign manufacturers, it's actually American consumers and businesses who end up shouldering the burden. Those added costs trickle down, leading to higher prices for, everyone. And that could have a real impact on inflation and consumer spending.
And And it's not just speculation. A 2019 study found that Trump's previous tariffs cost U.S. consumers an extra $3 billion per month in added tax costs. I mean, that's real money coming out of people's pockets. And not a single economist surveyed by the Wall Street Journal supported this plan.
It really highlights the disconnect between, the political rhetoric surrounding tariffs and the economic realities.
Yeah, for sure. Then there's the issue of deportations. Trump's plan involves mobilizing agencies like ICE, the FBI, the DEA, and even the National Guard to deport undocumented immigrants. He also wants to expand fast-track deportations, which essentially streamline the deportation process, making it, much quicker.
Yeah, fast-track deportations raise serious concerns about due process and, potential human rights violations. There's just not enough time for a thorough review of each case, and that could lead to people being, wrongly deported.
And to make things even more complicated, Trump has mentioned using a little-known section of the 1798 Alien and Sedition Act to deport migrants with criminal histories.
Right, and that's where things get really tricky. The Alien and Sedition Act was passed during a time of war hysteria and was used to silence political opponents. It's a law with a very controversial history, and many legal scholars argue that using it in this context would be, unconstitutional.
Yeah, it's a stark contrast to the approach we saw during the Biden administration. And with an estimated 10.5 million undocumented immigrants in the country, this could have massive implications for families, communities, and even local economies.
Exactly. We often, I think, overlook the economic role that undocumented immigrants play. Studies have shown they contribute significantly to, various sectors, and their removal could lead to labor shortages, decreased productivity, and harm to local businesses.
Right. Like, remember what happened in Alabama back in 2011 when they passed that harsh anti-immigrant bill? Crops were left to rot in the fields because there weren't enough workers to harvest them.
Yeah, it's a perfect example of how policies that don't, take into account the complexities of immigration can have unintended consequences, even hurting the very people they claim to protect.
It's true. So while these policies haven't been implemented yet, they definitely, paint a picture of what a second Trump administration might look like. But there's another side to this election that we need to kind of examine the ballot measures. They offer a fascinating glimpse into what voters are thinking about some pretty crucial issues, especially abortion rights.
Yeah, ballot measures give citizens a direct voice on, specific policies. And this year, we saw a real mix of outcomes that reflect the complicated and often conflicting views on abortion in this country.
Yeah, it's fascinating because while Trump won the presidency, voters in 7 states actually chose to, enshrine abortion rights into their state constitutions.
Right. It highlights the fact that even amidst, a national trend, individual states and communities can have very different priorities.
For sure. Let's break down some of those victories for abortion rights advocates. In states like Maryland, Montana, Nevada, and New York, where abortion was already legal, these measures are about ensuring those rights are protected in the future, no matter what happens at the federal level.
Yeah, it's kind of a preemptive move to safeguard against potential, rollbacks. And it speaks to a very real concern among voters about the future of reproductive rights in a, post-Roe v. Wade America.
Right. And then you've got Missouri and Arizona, where these ballot measures will actually overturn existing abortion restrictions.
Yeah, that's a huge win for abortion rights advocates, especially in states that have been at the forefront of, the anti-abortion movement. It really shows the power of direct democracy to, challenge and change restrictive laws.
Absolutely. In Missouri, which currently has a near-total abortion ban, the Right to Reproductive Freedom Amendment passed with 53% support, fundamentally changing the landscape for, abortion access. And in Arizona, Proposition 139, which guarantees the right to abortion until fetal viability, won with 62% support, overturning their existing 15-week ban. Voters in these states are sending a clear message. They want access to safe and legal abortion.
These victories are incredibly significant. They demonstrate growing public support for reproductive rights, even in, traditionally conservative states. And they suggest that the tide may be turning in the national debate on abortion.
Yeah. But it wasn't all smooth sailing for abortion rights. In Florida, Amendment 4, which aimed to overturn the state's 6-week abortion ban, actually received a majority of the votes, 57% support.
Oh.
But the catch. Florida requires a 60% majority to pass an amendment.
Oh, wow. It's a stark reminder of how even seemingly small procedural hurdles can have a huge impact on, election outcomes. The fight for reproductive rights continues, even in states where public opinion seems to be shifting.
And then there's South Dakota, where voters rejected Amendment G, which would have overturned the state's current abortion ban and guaranteed the right to an abortion without restrictions in the first trimester.
Right. This outcome suggests that public opinion on abortion in South Dakota remains largely, opposed to expanding access. It highlights the regional variations in attitudes toward reproductive rights, across the country.
For sure. Nebraska's situation was a bit more complicated. They had two separate measures on the ballot regarding reproductive rights, which led to some confusion among voters. One would have legalized abortion until viability, while the other would have enshrined the existing 12-week ban.
Having dueling measures on such a complex issue can definitely create confusion, and it's crucial that ballot initiatives, communicate clearly and transparently to avoid unintended consequences.
Yeah. In the end, the measure enshrining the 12-week ban won with 53% of the vote. It seems many Nebraska voters preferred to stick with the, status quo rather than making a drastic change in either direction.
It points to, I think, a sense of ambivalence surrounding the issue of abortion in Nebraska. Perhaps voters weren't ready to embrace a complete ban, but they weren't entirely comfortable with, unrestricted access either. It reflects the nuanced and often divided opinions that exist even within, individual states.
Yeah, for sure. Beyond abortion, marijuana legalization was another hot-button issue on the ballot. 3 states, Florida and both Dakotas, had measures to legalize recreational marijuana, but only Florida saw a majority vote in favor.
Right. However, even in Florida, that 60% rule came into play again. Amendment 3, which would have legalized recreational marijuana, garnered 56% support, not quite enough to, pass.
It seems public support for marijuana legalization is on the rise, but it hasn't quite reached that tipping point in some states.
It's a reminder that societal attitudes toward drug policy, change gradually.
Absolutely. Surprisingly, the one state that successfully passed marijuana legislation was Nebraska. Initiative 437, which legalizes medical marijuana, won with a landslide 71% of the vote.
Wow. This is a significant development. While it doesn't legalize, recreational use, it shows a willingness among Nebraska voters to embrace the potential therapeutic benefits of marijuana. It's a step toward, broader acceptance of cannabis and its medicinal uses.
So even though the presidential election results might feel like a setback for some, these ballot measures show that progress is still being made on, key issues.
It's really fascinating to see how these ballot measures offer a different perspective on the political landscape. While the presidential election results might suggest a shift in one direction, the outcomes of these initiatives show that, public opinion is much more, nuanced and complex.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that progress can, kind of happen on multiple levels. Even in the face of national setbacks, change can be driven by local initiatives and grassroots movements.
For sure. And these ballot measures are, I think, a real testament to the power of citizen engagement. They show that people can make a difference by, getting involved, voicing their opinions, and pushing for the policies they believe in.
Well said. It's been a roller coaster of an election cycle, filled with, unexpected turns and outcomes that will no doubt shape the future of our country. From Trump's historic win to the surprising shifts in voter demographics and those, nail-biting ballot measures, there's a lot to unpack and process.
Yeah, absolutely. The 2024 election, I think, really underscores the evolving nature of American politics and the importance of direct democracy. It highlights the need for, continued engagement, critical thinking, and understanding of all these complex forces at play.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the 2024 election. It's been a fascinating discussion.
The pleasure's all mine. And remember, regardless of who sits in the Oval Office, your voice and actions matter. Stay informed, stay engaged, and continue to, fight for the future you believe in.